Sorry guys, you're catching me mid-chew. I'm still sort of wrapping up lunch in between classes. Alrighty. Yeah, I know. Horrible manners abound. I know, I get that. Okay. We just finished dealing with some issues on our metal panel exterior wall. Let's go take a look at our stairs. Now, the things that we need to do to our stairs are not quite as extensive. For example, there's not a whole lot of information that we can add to the storefront. We are going to modify the placement of those mullions, and they have to be done kind of in a special way. But we need to add some information right through here, and we need to add a little piece right here. So let's zoom in. Second floor, this is above our, this is in front of the landing for the staircase. Back to, excuse me, annotate, component. Why, yes, thank you. I'd love to save the project in case something explodes. I don't want a 2x6, I want a 2x12 because that's the size of the member that happens right there. I'm going to go ahead and spin this. No, I don't want to spin that around 180 degrees because I want this to line up on the outside right there. And we're going to fake in having a chipboard wrap that runs up the side of that. I'm going to select that bit of framing, use my move command, and move that over a 1/2 inch because that's the same thickness as a typical bit of sheetrock. It's kind of hard to see. It is there. It's going to indicate that something's going on. And we're not discussing actual creating details in this class. That's something else. Okay. I'm going to zoom up here. We've got some issues on the high roof and issues on the low roof. We need to fill in the missing elements here. So again, I'm going to place a component, but instead of a 2x12, I'm going to use a 2x8. I'm going to zoom in. Where does he go? He's going to go, okay. I am going to spin him around and put one there and put another one. I want to put another one right next to it if it will let me. Doesn't look like it's, there we go. There we go. Boom, just like that. Press the space bar twice so I can spin them around. So I can place one here. And I'm going to fine tune the placement of this one. Let me check my notes real quick. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. There's our self. Again, I'll fine tune the placement. Let's rotate 90 degrees. Change our size to a 2x5. I'm sorry, a 2x6. Excuse me. 2x5s really don't get used very often. Rotate them. There we go. And I want the front end. I want the front end of that to align with the grid line here. Actually, it looks like it's there. I'll use my align tool to double check. Modify, align. I want to align to my grid line, and I want to make sure that's aligned to it. I want to align to my grid line, and I want to make sure the back edge of that framing is in alignment with it. So that's what's happening there. That's exactly what I want it to look like. Press escape a couple times. Okay. Select my select this end piece of lumber. Use my move tool. Move that back 3/4 of an inch. And you can see I can use those temporary dimensions to fine tune what I'm doing. It makes it's easier when you zoom in, when you can actually see what those dimensions say. Or of course, just like in AutoCAD, you just drag in the direction that you want to go and then type in 3/4 of an inch and it will go that direction. So the math is already built in. Okay. I want to duplicate this down over at the other end, so I'm just going to use my copy command. I'm going to pick the top left corner of the roof, pan over to get the top corner here. That way I don't have an additional, I don't have to place it and then move it back. It's just right there and it's in the right place. I want to take this condition that I have here. I'm going to select them both. Select one, hold the control key, select my other one. I'm going to zoom in a little so I can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to use my copy command. And I want the midpoint, there we go, the midpoint of the bottom edge of that bit of framing right there. That's where I want to copy from. So left click, zoom out, pan over, zoom in, and I want him right there. That'll do. That will work nicely, and that's pretty close to what I've got there. Okay. Now we need to add some insulation. Annotate tab, insulation. It's already 5.5 inch, so I'm going to start at the midpoint here. Whoops, that's not supposed to be 5.5 inches. That's 7.25. But you know what? We can change this after the fact. Go from midpoint to midpoint. I'm going to click escape a couple of times on the keyboard, select my insulation, and I'm going to change this value from 5.5 inches to 7.25 inches. There we go. Place insulation. Now it remembered the previous value when we actually used the command. That's 5.5 inches. So now I need to change it to 7.25. And I'm going to start on this second piece and just move my mouse until it disappears beyond the border of the view. Now, in terms of adding detail elements to sort of help flesh out what's happening here, this is done. Everything here, everything for adding detail elements is done. What I need to do now is I need to modify the position of my mullions. And I don't know why that's showing up that way. It looks awfully funny. It appears to be a little display glitch. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. So what happens if I select a mullion and I click on move and I want to just move it? What happens? Nothing. And the reason that nothing happens is, first of all, a mullion is pinned. Strangely enough, we're not moving the mullions. The mullions in the storefront are actually dependent on another piece that lives inside the wall. And we can't move the mullion until we move that piece inside the wall. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hover over the edge of my mullion. I'm going to click tab once, and that will select the entirety of this storefront. I'm going to click tab one more time. That is going to get the chain of both pieces of storefront. So it's the piece that runs this way, and then it's the other piece on your left-hand side that's running this way. So now both of these are tentatively selected. I'm going to push tab a third time. Now you see that green dashed line that shows up. It's going to be a different color on your machine, and that's fine. Now I click. This is the curtain wall grid. This is the object that lives inside the curtain wall that dictates where the mullions happen. We need to unpin this. What this is going to do is this is going to free it from the rules that are governing its current position. So I unpin it, and I'm going to use this temporary dimension right over here. It's kind of hard to see, but there it is. I'm going to click that dimension. I'm going to change the value from 1 foot to 5'8". Why? Because I know that's the dimension that it needs to be. So there we go. You can see it moved that mullion down, but it only did it on this one wall. We need to repeat the process over here. But as you notice, if I zoom in, let me zoom in actually, I can highlight the mullion, but all I have to do is mouse over the center line of the mullion, and now that curtain wall grid highlights. It's just something that Revit does. It's easier to select this in section than it is in elevation. So I'll select my curtain wall grid, unpin it. There's my temporary dimension right there. Click right there, enter 5'8", and my dimensions are driving the location of my mullion. I want to duplicate this down on the bottom end because I want the top mullion to be the same distance from the top of the storefront as the bottom, as it is at the bottom. So I want them both to be equally shrunk in on both sides. So my mouse over until I find my curtain wall grid, unpin it. Here's this dimension down here at the bottom. Select it, 5'8". That's moved that mullion down. I hover my mouse over this mullion, tab once, tab twice, tab thrice. I don't get to use that word very often. I love it. Left click. It's really hard to see and make out, but there is our pin. I want to unpin that grid mullion. Come down here. It's kind of hard to see again, but there's that temporary dimension. Highlight the dimension, 5'8", push return. Now you can see those grid lines line up. And because we're doing all this in three-dimensional space, when I look at my overall 3D view, and I spin around, there it is right there. You guys can see it. The modifications that we make in elevation are reflected everywhere. So this is one of the things that we absolutely love about Revit is that you change it one place, it updates all over the place. It's wonderful. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Back to our section through the stairs. The only things that I really want to add here is I do want to add a couple of dimensions that illustrate where our storefront dimensions are hitting. So click Aligned Dimension. I'm going to start at the ground floor reference plane. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to click the top of the mullion. And then I want the bottom of the next mullion and the top of that mullion. I'm going to bypass the second floor level. I'm going to go mullion to mullion. And then mullion, and then click on the level here, and that's my final spot. Pull back out a bit. Boom. That's doing exactly what I wanted to do. All right. So those are the modifications to the stair section. What's next? I'm actually trying to remember what's next. Okay. I'll remember in a second, and then I'll start making the next video, and hopefully there's enough time to do it before class starts. So see you in the next video.